Welcome to Collateral Damage, the show where we talk about the unseen cost of being seen and what it really takes to build a world that loves us back. I'm your host, Sean Coleman, and today we're talking about the downside of visibility. For years, visibility was the rallying cry. We marched for it, we fought for it, we demanded to be seen in art, in politics, in culture. And in many ways, we won. Trans people are more visible than ever before, but visibility didn't come with safety. It didn't guarantee jobs. It didn't guarantee housing or health care. It didn't stop the violence. So now, we're asking the hard question, what comes after visibility? Our guest today is someone whose voice and vision has reshaped what advocacy looks like. She's a storyteller, a truth teller, and a force behind some of the most powerful conversations about visibility, creativity, and change. Daniella Carter. She's a lifelong advocate for LGBTQIA+ youth, a director, a producer, who's used every medium from film to fashion to amplify trans and queer voices. She's collaborated with icons like Laverne Cox in the documentary The T Word. Most recently, she was featured in the award-winning documentary Kokomo City. And she's now working on her directorial debut feature, exploring what it means to grow up trans in the Midwest and to navigate the current political climate with resiliency and heart. Welcome to Collateral Damage.
Thank you for having me, Sean. That was such a surreal moment, just witnessing that. Yes,
because we have some history.
Yes,
we have a little bit of history.
Yes,
and I was so excited when I realized I was going to get an opportunity to really talk to you professionally. Right?
Yeah.
I watched you come up. I admire your work. You inspire me so much. So I'm really, really excited about just hearing your thoughts.
Thank you.
What it feels like to be visible.
Oh, and boy, are there some thoughts up in there, right?
I want to jump right into it.
Of course.
So you've been visible both as an artist and an activist. When you think about trans visibility today, what emotions or reality comes up for you?
I think for me, when I think about trans visibility in this current political climate, I think for so many people, it can feel very unsafe, right? Because now you become the target, you become the talking point, right? For what can be seen as not just harmful rhetoric,
right,
but a part of pushing this so-called gender ideology onto children. And so I think what we saw right in this recent election was a backlash to visibility, to trans visibility, because they were able to weaponize it and say when now we're giving trans people positions, not only to just be the actors in front of the camera, but now they're behind the scenes. Now we're really shaping the stories that we're seeing in mainstream media. And so I think so many people became a bit unease by this idea that trans people aren't just the stereotypes that we've oftentimes seen them as, right? We aren't these really big, scary people. We aren't these imposters. But what we are is hardworking, thriving artists who's contributing to the national conversation about not only what the binary looks like, but how we can expand beyond the binary. And so I think, yes, it's been something where it's been incredibly powerful for individuals to be able to see themselves. But then I also think about how that wave of visibility has also came at the expense of so many people, right, who had to uphold this archetype of what it means to be trans, and then pushed into that so-called advocate label, right? And then they failed at that. And then they experienced a certain level of rejection from the community because their artistry didn't align with their political views. And so, for a great example to be, everyone thought Caitlyn Jenner transitioning was the greatest moment of visibility to wait, no, this person's a Republican. Oh, so they're not going to take on the liberal agenda.
Right.
They're not going to be that voice of reason for us at the margins, right? But then did we ever interrogate the fact that this was always a privileged person who just so happened to be trans, right? And was not ever in a position to where when you're asking, for on the ground, resources like housing, when you're asking for access to healthcare, when you're asking for sustainability from the most elite, you failed. You forgot that class still divided us.
Right.
You know, and whether we intersected at both being trans did not mean that their visibility would be the social capital that would move me out of beyond mere survival, right?
Right.
And so a lot of us who are in, you know, positions of so-called visibility thought that that would be the tool to get us out of survival, and it didn't. And so now we're back at a time where so many people are feeling that sense of survival that they didn't think existed anymore. Because it was like, we got the Laverne Cox, we got the Janet Mox, we got what we thought we needed, but what we always must remember is that, right, visibility doesn't translate into equity. And so when we move beyond the moment of exploitation, right, and now it requires technical skills, right? You know, and that's the thing that we need people to understand, that it's great to have the soft skills that we've gotten through this visibility, because we're really good at having the conversation. But now what does it look like for us to execute beyond that conversation? Right. And so many people are struggling with that, because you got to do more than just get on social media every day and talk about the problem, because now we need to start seeing the solutions to these problems.
So if visibility was the goal, now we need to be solution driven, right?
Right.
So,
well, I mean, if visibility was the goal, then half of the cast from Pose wouldn't be screaming at Ryan Murphy from their phones, right? Because what we would know is that not everybody who give us opportunity for visibility also understand the inter-community issues.
But to stick with that, right? Was it on him to make sure that once they became visible that they understood how to use that platform? Or was that something that should have been taught within our community so that those folks that are now going to have these huge platforms understand, one, the power of the platform, and two, how you utilize it?
And I think, though, too, to speak to that, would be more true to say is that I think sometimes what we don't realize is that people giving us these opportunities, again, don't understand the totality of the challenges, right, that comes with visibility for some people. So some people catapult into visibility, but now they're still having to take on not only just their immediate family, but then their chosen family. And then with that, you know, visibility comes the community expectations of them, right? And so now everybody's pulling at this so-called capital pool of visibility, but don't understand, too, how's that translating on the back into them checks. And so now when you've never been taught financial literacy, right, but when you're still, again, coming out of survival,
right,
and you're living in scarcity still, you're only thinking about, how do I keep up the image? Right? And so you don't realize, yeah, he might have gave you a couple seasons to give you a check or two, but this wasn't for you to just go buy, you know, a bunch of designer clothes.
Right.
This wasn't just for you to always appear at the red carpet events being the fat girl. It was long term, right? Did you have the creative tools, okay, to be able to partner with that man on something that, it's the name of the game, he needed to benefit from the most?
Right.
and it sucks to say that. But what we thought as a community is that we had individuals who were going to lead us to, you know, these revolutionary moments in television and film. And he said, no, this is what it was. This was a moment for the community, right? This wasn't, right, this did not mean that we were going to be 10 years down the line with this show.
Right.
This wasn't the next American Horror Story franchise, right? This was a show that felt culturally necessary,
right,
for that specific era. And what we didn't realize is that immediately after that era would come the rise of a Donald Trump regime. And so, no, I don't think that it fell 100% on him, but I also think that there were things, of course, right, that comes with the name of the game too, like contracts, right? And so, you know, some girls thought that the first contract they signed for their first big gig was the best thing to do. And this is not just for that show. This is across the industry, to be clear. So I don't want to just make it sound like I'm pinpointing to that specific show.
Right.
But I do know that right now, at a time where so many, right, people who were those community leaders from that specific program are literally fighting for their lives.
Right.
Right? And they've been not abandoned by the community, but the community don't know how to plug them in because they're not able to capitalize off of that Pose franchise visibility, but they got to allow these real conversations to happen. And for a lot of people, they're not ready for those real conversations.
So keeping with that, how would you define progress for the trans community, right? Because to your point, I think we put a lot on those folks. They're actresses and actors, and we get an opportunity to see them, and now we've thrown all our eggs in one basket because we now believe that this is what's going to move us forward.
Right.
But what does progress actually look like, especially for someone that has now had this opportunity, had these platforms, been in those rooms, understand
How to
what
navigate
happens
the
in
bureaucracy
those,
of it all.
Right, you understand it now,
Right.
so you can come back and better inform the community. So what does progress for the trans community beyond being seen looks like?
I think that there's a number of incredible organizations that are doing the work, and I always have to give shout out to BTFA because what they've done to really reshape what even trans artists looks like in mainstream media and at the local level here in New York is that they're saying that trans people can author their own stories,
right,
and then putting the equity behind them, right? And so I think, like, yeah, progress looks like knowing the institutions that are doing the work, right? And it's not getting sucked up in administrative cost, but it's saying that, you know what I mean? And that they're saying, like, we're actually directly investing. And then I think, too, though, and this is where my hurt for the community is, your sad story is not your artistry.
Right. Oh, God.
Right? Your traumas is real, your struggles and adversities are real, but what is your real talent?
Yeah.
Right?
Because you can only do that for so long.
No, and I mean, but listen, you can do it as long as you want to until your lights get turned off. And because the landscape changed where people are now forcing people into certain political positions. So they're saying if you don't sound like a liberal, you're a problem. If you are sounding like a conservative, you're a problem. Like, and it's like we're so busy like pointing the finger at who's the wrong instead of saying, okay, systematically, what's the challenge here? Girl, you don't know how to send an email, let alone a text. No, and we're not talking about this enough in the community. Like, people want jobs without the skills. And so you need to go learn how to do the job you say you want beyond just being able to show up and have a conversation about the job you want.
I'm glad you said that, because when I say that, then I'm a hater, and I'm, you know, because people just want to show up as in their authentic self, and this is who I am, right? And you go, but baby, you can learn and you can grow, and we're actually supposed to learn and grow, right? But to your point, I think when I say you can only do that for so long, you can only show up in those rooms for so long with that story. The story has to grow, right? The story has to expand. I need to at least be able to look at it and see some hope and some inspiration in that story. If the story is always a sad story, at some point people turn away because it begins to, you know.
We normalize trauma in this community a little bit too much, right? And it's because what we know is that we can exploit trauma, but we know that it takes a lot more work to do to sit down and collectively, interpersonally, go through that work, right? And say that this is not my ego saying that, oh, I'm better than you. My ego is saying that, you know, I'm more established than you. But what I know is that you lack certain workforce skills that even when I want to pull you up by your bootstraps, baby, I can't. Because you're so busy living in the shame, in the entitlement, right, that you didn't spend enough time to reinvest back in self. Like, for me, for an example, would be is that I remember there was a point where that story was great. It was lucrative because while I'm traveling and going to schools and, oh my God, boo-hoo, boo-hoo, pour me a drink. But what I wasn't telling people was the mental health challenges that I was going through because of having to always tell a trauma story.
The toll it takes on you.
Right, and so then I said to myself, okay, well, being this person who's out here in front of the cameras telling these stories is helping foster understanding. How is this hurting me?
Right.
And so then I was like, okay, what are you going to do to cultivate, right, your artistry? And I realized, okay, so my story is not the story where I'm going to be out here doing acting chops. I'm not doing auditions. That's just not me. But then I said, what can you do? And then at that moment, I said, okay, one, you know you need to probably go back to school. Right? And it's okay not to be a glamour girl for a few years. Like, it's okay to live in something that doesn't always have to feel like it's transactional, that is chasing survival, but to just sit within something that gives me the language and the tools to be able to actually go out there and build the world that I say that I want to be a part of, instead of expecting the yes to come and then I'll be able to live in that world. So I said, no, first I'll start at school. Okay, now that I'm at school, what else do I need? Well, I know I want to make a movie. That means it requires a team. How will that team come? I'm not going to sit around asking these people to give me the money. I'm going to find the money. How did I find the money? I didn't go knocking on every door, and after they said no, I said, oh, people don't see me, they don't value me. No, I built out my own activations. Because I started to learn the name of the game when it came to getting fundraising done, not only just for personal initiatives, right? Because to me, a film is something personal. But now what happens when I want to go out there and dare to say, I want to give money back to the community? Okay, now I'm going to give people an experience to invest in, right? Versus just saying, oh, I'm black, I'm trans, run me my check. Girl, everybody wants them to be ran a check because of their intersecting components. Wouldn't that be nice if that's how we all got paid, just by saying, well, look, this is my sad story, so run me a check. And I was like, no, these are the technical skills, right, that a lot of girls, when they see me or know of me and my work, and they're like, well, you know, she do what she do, but we can't do that because it's white people. No, it's not white people, baby. It's not. What it is a network of people that I fought my ass to build, that believe in me because I didn't just sit back and wait for after the no and said, oh, this is why it's not valuable. I fought for my own goddamn yes.
You showed up for yourself, right.
You know? And so I always tell myself that, like, when I think about this climate now and these people that talk about visibility, these people that think they're successful, I'm like, baby, the only thing you were successful at was having a moment. That's what you were good at. But long term, what does your self-sufficiency and stability looks like? And that's why it's not a jab to no girl, but to the girl who used to look down on those little, you know, apps that where you could do those little video messages to get a couple dollars, you know, from your fans. Oh, and to some girls that was, oh, how dare you, you are poor. How dare you, that is not what that is. They all doing it now.
Right.
And so that lets me know that even collectively, y'all didn't build the platform that we needed.
You've touched on financial literacy a few times, and I think I want you to like really expound on it, because I don't think enough of us understand what it means to truly invest in yourself, right? Like, yeah, you can run around and you're the fab girl in the room, or guy. I'm not judging anybody. Or person. You're the fab person in the room, right? You showed up and you had on all the labels and all the things, but have you invested in like really understanding what that contract looks like so you can negotiate it differently next time, right? And you don't have stipulations that stop you from getting money. Did you realize how you should be investing your money so that it grows, so that it's sustainable, so that when you have those down periods of time, you can live off of some of that residual investment? Like, I want to like really hear about what you think financial literacy means in our, because the time is climate too.
And no, but to your point too, though, and I think is that, and it's also remembering that as you scale up, don't look down on anybody who you're going past, right? Because you'll still need that same community that you think that you're above, in those down seasons, right? And so always remember and be gracious, right, to the people who gave you the platform that you have, and not think that now somehow you're above them. Because that's what happens too. A lot of the girls, they become stars, or guys, girls, people.
The folks.
The folks, okay? The folks.
The folks.
The folks.
You don't want to make nobody.
Nobody didn't feel like excluded. The folks. No, seriously. But I think is that a lot of times is that these people were not in positions where they, one, even knew that, how to love and invest in themselves first, right? Because all they knew was, it's like, soon as I get out the struggle, the only way I'll appear as not being in the struggle is if I go buy that expensive luggage. If I go buy them expensive clothes. If I go then and make sure that I can stay around certain people who don't like you really for you.
They don't fuck with you at all.
At all. Because the only reason why you're invited into that space is because of how you're perceived, not for who you really are. Because if people knew you was batshit crazy, they wouldn't let your ass back in. If people knew that you barely knew how to read a book, you would never be asked to read a script. But because you have certain social capital around you, people tend to exploit that. And then back to your point about financial literacy, I think what happens is that people come from poverty, right? So what happens?
Most of us have come from poverty.
And so, you know, a lot of times people, the first thing they think is, I'm going to invest in the materialistic aspect of this, not even the idea of like, girl, you can go get you a foreclosed home. Okay, and over those few seasons or whatever those gigs are in your life, you could literally take a $10,000 home and turn it into a $600,000 property over time. The question is, are you willing to make that sacrifice? We're so quick to sacrifice to get Botox in our face, to get new silicone put in our body, to go get the newest labeled bag, but then we're showing up with that new bag and all them fillers and Botox.
And ain't not a nickel in that bag.
Oh no, they used to have their food stamp card in it until Donald Trump cut that off.
Oh God.
And so, if we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
And even when it comes to this idea, too, that so many people were able to use fabulosity to distract themselves, right, from the real struggle they were living in, what we have to say to ourselves is that people who thought they were voting for an economy that knew that they were on government assistance, people that thought that they were literally somehow going to let the person who have shown time and time again that only through corruption, that's how he built his wealth. You thought that he would be the savior, right? You thought that this person would actually somehow see enough of us as people of color first, right, to sustain and create less of a gap in the wealth.
But did they really think that, or did they think that there was a certain level of acceptance for them because in their mind they had made it?
Oh, definitely the idea that them socially, in a sense of not having to live the day-to-day reality of, you know, what does eating meat look like for me? Like, where does my next meal come from?
Right.
What does transportation? I mean, yeah, I think there was a few who made it through the cracks, but I'll just set that there because who really got it like that?
Right.
Because a lot of the girls that had it don't got it. And I know that because I've helped those girls. And I love that you're still at these functions day in and day out in makeup, knowing you borrowed my money and haven't paid me back. But I'm going to continue to live in my blessings and not my delusion. Because what I know is that it's really still you struggling with imposter syndrome.
Right.
Than it is me not being willing to see you for who you are, which is a person who made really poor financial decisions, who probably should sell half of their closet, so that way they can go then reinvest into something, maybe like their education, maybe like starting a small business, maybe like something that doesn't require them to show up with trauma, but with actual skills.